Hi, I'm Tracey.
Hi, and I'm Faye. Welcome to More Better with Tracey and Faye.
Key messages.
Yes.
That's all I gotta say. Thank you for coming to our podcast. Key messages, what are
And
they?
scene. No, I'm just kidding.
Right? Why does everybody want them? Who is everybody? Who are you? And how do we use them? For every communication plan that I write or Faye writes or almost any professional communicator would write for any reason includes key messages, because those are the things, those key messages answer those five basic questions in journalism: the who, the what, the when, the why, and the how. So whether you are leading a program, you are putting together a business proposal, you are going to be having a challenging conversation and you want to get your point across, key messages, key messages are really important to craft before you head into those situations. So today, Faye and I, we're going to talk about key messages and explore those aspects of them. What are they? Why are they important? How to write them? How to use them? So Faye, please start us off.
Thank you. Okay, first things first. What are they? Key messages are main points or ideas that you want your audience to remember and take away from any communication. We like to think of them as, serving the backbone of your message, guiding your audience's understanding and shaping their perception. We use them to answer basic questions, just like what Tracey said, about the situation and repeat them wherever and whenever possible. Why? Again, because we want people to remember them. We've all seen those press conferences and interviews lately, especially these days with politicians, where they seem to sort of ignore the question being asked and they say the same thing that they said in the other answer. Guess what? Those are key messages. Politicians, business leaders, spokespeople have all been trained to focus on delivering those key messages more than answering specific questions. Now, this doesn't mean to treat key messages as suspect, but this example shows them in action in a way that we can all relate to. How about you, Tracey? Can you talk about how to write key messages?
Yes. Well, the thing about key messages is it follows on from everything. So this one thing that Faye and I say every single time, which is when you are heading into creating any kind of communication or you want to solve a communication problem, you start with asking and answering these three questions. What is my objective? Who is my audience? What does my audience need from me in terms of information or perspective for my objective to be met? So key messages are one of the main outcomes of answering those three questions, because it gives you all the background you need to know to go, okay, what do I need to say over and over and over again for my objective to be met? So a very easy example. I work at a company, we have a supplier, but I want to change suppliers. I want to change from Acme to Ace. And I have my reasons for doing it, but maybe I've got a bit of an uphill battle with my boss who has to sign off. So I need to figure out, what do I need to pitch to my boss so that we can make the supplier switch that I think is really necessary. So maybe there's a strong relationship between my boss and the current supplier. So I'm going to need to address that. Maybe it's a cost thing. Maybe it's an efficiency thing. Maybe it's a speed thing. Maybe it's a quality thing. Maybe quality's gone down. But all of these things, you get all this information from answering those three questions that can help you go into creating the key messages. Faye?
I like that example. I like that example a lot. One thing I would also say is, because it's key messages, they look simple at the outset, but they take just as you in that example, you have to grab a lot of information, right, to boil it all down to something simple. And there are some great tools and templates out there. You simply Google key message template and you'll see lots. You'll see they're called message maps, message platforms, etc. So as Tracey mentioned, depending on the client and their needs, we've drafted ones with key messages. Maybe it's followed by a one-liner. Maybe it's followed by a little elevator pitch. Maybe it follows a basic FAQ to answer those questions. So what rules do you follow when writing key messages?
Well, I've got three that I basically follow. And to your point, Faye, the first one is keep them simple and short. A key message has to be memorable. I was about to say rememberable. They have to be memorable.
I can be that too, I guess.
Because you want people to latch on and hold that, and you want them to hear it lots of times. So it can't be some big convoluted, complicated idea. Keep them short, keep them simple. Focus on benefits, not features. If I tell people, if I keep saying, well, it's red, it's red, it's red, but they don't understand what this thing being red means, mm-hmm. then it's useless. Just say it's faster. It's faster, right? Faster is a benefit. It'll get you there faster. Saying it's red is not, it's just a feature. And so you want to focus on the benefits, not the features, and use evidence and examples. Any time that you can provide concrete evidence or a concrete example that, again, is short and simple, make sure you use that. So I think about, the primary audience who's going to be impacted by whatever this thing is. And I ask myself, again, through the lens of those journalism questions, what questions they might ask. So I'll say, what question might they have about who is impacted or who is doing this thing? What's happening? What is being impacted? When is it happening? Why is it happening? And then how is this thing going to be implemented, operationalized, that kind of idea. So I use that framework and I marry those questions with the audience and the individuals who would reasonably ask those questions. So it's not a wordsmithing exercise so much as a putting myself in the head of the people who are impacted and asking myself, what questions will they ask? And the thing with key messages, and to always remember, is the key messages aren't what I want to say. It's what my audience needs to hear, so my objective will be met. And I have a bit of a story I'm going to tell on that, because it was kind of a fascinating, unexpected key message situation. I was in a legal situation with an organization. So I went to see a lawyer to talk about what was going on for me. And he guided me. He said, well, if next time you are interacting with this organization and you have a meeting with this person, make sure that you hit these key messages. And he gave me 5 or 6 of these key messages to hit. And I did have a meeting the following week with an individual. And he said, let's just sit down. Let's just role play. Let's practice this. So I'm in there with him and he's on the other side of the desk and we're having these conversations and I'm hitting those key messages. And I said to him, this is so fun. And he looked at me like I had completely lost my mind. He said, nobody has ever said they have fun doing this role play exercise. And I'm like, man, I've been writing key messages for a long time. So to be at the recipient end of those, I'm right there with you, man. I'm in there and I'm on it and I'm going to practice these key messages.
I like that. That's a good lawyer. You know what I mean?
It was pretty great.
Serve them up to you. I love that. I love that story.
And I mean, I haven't dealt with a lot of lawyers. Maybe it's a regular practice, but it was pretty. I was like, oh, key messages. Okay, now we're in my sandbox.
I got
now
this.
We're gonna play, right? And the only other thing I'm going to say on about creating them is most communication plans only need a few, less than 10. If you've got this big multi-year, multifaceted thing, there could be a lot, but generally the fewer the better, because people don't remember, 25 things. They'll only remember I'm sorry, Faye. I'm sorry. I know you love the 25-page.
Oh, no, I don't. And that takes us very nicely into how we use them. That was that fun fact, right? Fun fact. I came on to a project a little late. That's fine. And someone said, oh, here are our key messages for this project. And I said, oh, that's great, because this project's going to launch in 3 months. So they should have already had those key messages. 25 pages.
Yeah.
It was actually
quite a something.
Crazy.
It's like the owner's manual.
Yeah, pretty much. But anyway, all right. We digress. So now that you've drafted those key messages, and please not 25 pages, how do you use them? Well, the short answer, in everything. FAQs, scripts, articles, intranet pages, all the things, as they do in marketing, or as they say in marketing and do in marketing, repeat, repeat, repeat. Just when you're getting sick of that message, especially if it's a multi-year or multi-month kind of like project, your audience will maybe just starting to get it. So another thing to consider is that key messages can change over time, especially if, like I said, you're working on a program or a project that spans, a long period of time. So there can be things like market conditions, employee sentiment. There's some sort of organizational structure that's happening, or something happening in the business that maybe wasn't expected. So that can impact what would be important to say at this point in time. How about you? How do you use them?
Well, I would, obviously agree with everything that you said. I think for me, as I was coming up in the profession, the thing that was the biggest surprise to me is how much they have to be repeated. And one of the early change programs I worked on, a change program I worked on early in my career, I was working on the communication plan alongside someone who was an actual change management expert, which was pretty unusual in those years. And I was putting this document together, and I remember we were talking about various key messages. And I said about one, I said, oh, well, so-and-so is saying that in this upcoming presentation. And this woman looked at me and she goes, it's really important that they be repeated lots. I had this in my head that, well, if John is going to say it at the town hall, then if repeated elsewhere, people will know that and they'll be like, oh, well, this isn't new information. And I was obviously completely wrong in that. It really is about ongoing repetition. And if, you mentioned marketing, you think about, marketing slogans, just do it, or, whatever they are. You hear them thousands of times. Yeah. And that's the goal. You hear them thousands of times, and then you can go, oh, well, that's what this is about. Same thing with key messages. So that would be the only thing I'd add to that, is really be unafraid to repeat them endlessly and everywhere. Basically.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Can I just add one more thing?
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to add one more thing. I know you and I have also talked about key messages sounding like using the same language, right? And I think sometimes people think, oh, well, it's a key message, but I'm going to say it this way here, and I'm going to say it this way here. And like if you want them to be remembered and you're repeating them, I know, again, being the communicator in the room, you're like, oh my God, I'm so sick of writing this one-liner, but that's how people remember stuff, right?
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to repeat them in the way that repeat them in different ways, just as you said in that example.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
All right. So a recap of key messages. So what are they? Key messages form the backbone of what your audience needs to hear. So they need to be simple, they need to be repeatable, and they need to be broadly applicable. Key messages are not for a very narrow audience individual in this one particular case. They are broad. How do you write them? You craft them by asking yourself who, what, when, why, and how as related to your audience and your objective. And if you aren't sure if your key messages are the right ones, test them. It could happen that you start down the road and go, this isn't landing. People aren't understanding. So I'm just going to change it up. And that's okay. And so depending on the risk level of your program or your change, testing before launch might even be an important thing if testing in the middle ground maybe wouldn't go so well. So keep that in mind. And then how to use them? Well, as we've said, use them in a variety of ways. And to repeat what Faye said, use them over and over and over and over to the point of boredom, because then your audience might just be starting to get it. And if you want more insight into developing and using key messages, please reach out. We would love to help. As you know, Faye and I offer custom training in all aspects of business communication. So if you and your team have a challenge that Better Communication can solve, call us. We can help figure that out for you. And with that, I'm Tracey.
And I'm Faye. Join us next time on More Better with Tracey and Faye. Bye.
Bye.